not just the mama and the papa. It's the mama and the papa and the baby. Think about it. Most people don't even have viability outside the womb until they're like 18, 20 years old. I mean, and then they only keep their viability out until they're like 65. And people just start wanting to justify who they can keep around, just changing what they call them. Like somebody needs to be defined as a person to get human rights? See through the crap and get to the heart of the issue. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Through Confusion. Today with me is Joe Blow, and Joe has what I like to call some conservative common sense. So today we're going to be talking about the three biggest arguments for pro-choice, and we're going to destroy them. Let's go. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining us, Joe. Good to have you. Whee! I love talking about this kind of stuff. Never lost me one of them debates ever. It's going to be good stuff right here. Well, I am excited to get into this conversation. I want to preface it. I mean, so often you get into these conversations with people or you're watching them maybe on YouTube, and it's a very passionate discussion. People get very emotional. They get like, so they feel so hurt or this about it. And I think all of this emotion makes it so that people just don't see clearly into what's actually going on. And they don't use their common sense. And so through this, I want you to kind of break down some of these arguments, give some just common sense answers to what they are. So we're going to get into it. The first argument that you hear all the time, it's picketed out there, is my body, my choice. So what do you say to that, Joe? Oh, I love this one. I would just say, ma'am, I totally agree with you. And let's just give it some time, right? We give a few years. We'll let this little fella decide what they want to do with their body. Everything will be fine. Maybe when they're old enough, they can tell us what they want to do with their body. But as for you, we all know how the birds and the bees work. I mean, we all got the common sense. We know what you've been doing. And so we're going to say, you know how a baby was made. You made your choice, and now you just got to deal with the consequences of what you've been doing. And you can't just beat around the bush and try and act like now you get to decide what you want to do with your body. You already decide what you want to do with your body. And we just got to keep it like that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Where do you think people get this kind of reasoning from? Well, I'm sorry. The burden of proof's kind of on you on this one. You got facts for that or something like that? Well, of course. I'd love to answer that. So the reasoning actually comes from 1969 in the height of the feminist movement, where they were kind of searching for giving women reproductive rights and dealing with bodily autonomy. And basically what they're saying is that the woman is the one who's affected with pregnancy. And so it should be the woman's right to choose. Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by all those big words that you're spewing out, but I think it's not too hard. And the conversation right now, let's really think about it. It's not just two people. It's not just the mama and the papa. It's the mama and the papa and the baby. And so I think we're going to have to get all three of them here in this conversation, and we can't just focus on one of the people. I mean, the baby's the most affected here. Come on, you got to think about that, little fella. Okay, let's get into pro-choice argument number 2. So, Joe, the fetus doesn't have personhood until it has viability outside of the womb. So that's why abortion is okay. Man, that's ridiculous. I mean, think about it. Most people don't even have viability outside the womb until they're like 18, 20 years old. I mean, and then they only keep their viability out until they're like 65. And so if you're saying this, if you're saying that they need that kind of viability to be called a person, I mean, that's a slippery slope. You're going to be out here, you're going to be doing a little number to some people because they don't qualify for a person, right? They need to be viable. What kind of nonsense is this? Yeah, and people just start wanting to justify who they can keep around, just changing what they call them. I mean, redefining a word doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong just because you say it doesn't have personhood. What kind of nonsense is that? So what would you say if somebody asked you, Joe, when does personhood begin in your mind? You know what I'd say? I'd say, what kind of crap question is that? Like, somebody needs to be defined as a person to get human rights? Like, who's making up these rules? Amen. It ain't a cow. It ain't a ferret. That thing got human DNA because that thing's a human. And that's all it needs to get human rights. It don't need no personhood nonsense. What, are you going to make up some stupid argument like that? Yeah, we see that. I mean, it's a good tactic. You create up some random category and then you derail the conversation off of meaningful things and you start getting them in a circle, trying to define something that is totally irrelevant to the conversation, like personhood has nothing to do with if this is a human or if it's not a human. Exactly. We gotta see through the crap and get to the heart of the issue. I mean, look at the facts. If you look at Roe v. Wade, I mean, I've attached this chart below. 63 million babies since 1973. That's what our nation has done. 63 million. That's insane. Yeah, that's literally unspeakable. Like, it has to stop. We have to put an end to this in our generation. It's not okay. It's literally just, I can't say that enough. It's horrific what we've done. Yeah, that's literally 60 million people. That's literally all of Great Britain or all of France just completely destroyed, exterminated. That's unreal. Hey, I hope you liked the video so far. Just take a moment to like the channel and subscribe so you get the content that's coming up in the future, and we'll get right back to the video. Thanks. Okay, well, I don't even really want to bring up this last point. It's dumbfounding that this argument still has to go on, but people still bring up this point. So what do you say to people who look at the whole thing and say, well, the parent doesn't have the financial ability to raise a child, or they're not going to have a good future, so it's better to abort the baby? What would you say to that? Honestly, that is the biggest bullcrap philanthropist politician answer I could ever even imagine. That's literally like saying, let's take every single child in the world that we see they don't have our standard of prosperity. They won't have our standard of living. They won't make as much money as you. They don't get to play on the same sports. Let's round up all those people and let's literally exterminate them because they're not going to have as good of a life that you have. Who made you the judge over that? And then trying to force that on a parent and say, oh, parent, you're going to have to be able to supply some certain thing or else you got to abort your baby. That's literally the biggest BS I ever seen. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just the hard truth. People need to man up and people need to woman up and just take control of that situation. What would you say? Somebody asked you, okay, well then we talk about the problems. What would you do about it? How do you solve this problem? I think number one, we got to make this stuff illegal. I mean, we're all for human rights all around the world. We're trying to fight this battle, but we're not even taking the human right for a baby, the most unprotected form of human life, and we're not giving them their human rights. That's unreal. Make that illegal. The second, we need to actually start emphasizing that children are a blessing from the Lord. Like, when did we forget this in the nation? When did we think they're such a hindrance? When did we think they're such a problem? I mean, like, children are a good thing. And they're the foundation of any good nation that's being built, that's growing, that's thriving. If they're having a good growth rate in their population, that means that they're going to be a good country. Third, for believers, let's stand up, be the light, show people what they need to do with their lives. I think, like, stop being the believers that don't think they have a clue or anything to offer anybody around them, or think that they're standing in the way, that if they offer this truth, like, people are blinded. People are lost and they're going through life and it's hitting them a million miles an hour and they get pregnant and then the whole world's telling them to abort it. And you're a Christian, you should be knowing what to do, and you just, right on down the river. I know there's a waterfall 30 feet down that way, but I'm just sending them right along. What are you doing? What are we doing? We need to change that. So that's what I do. All right. Speak to the people out there, the Christians that are watching this video. They're struggling with it. They have friends in this situation. How do they take a stand? What do they do to walk through this in a way that's pleasing to God? Yeah, I mean, I'd say in any time in history, things are really confusing. But when you look back at it, there's only two sides. You can either be on the right side of history or you can be on the wrong side of history. You better pray that you're going to be on the right side of history, because you don't want to be one of those people that really finds themselves saying, oh, I messed up. So really pray, seek the Lord, try and make good decisions when we're coming through these confusing times. Don't just go with the flow. Don't just float down the river. You need to keep your eyes open. The Bible tells us to pray and to watch, because we know our enemy is prowling like a roaring lion, coming around us, seeking whom we can devour. Amen, amen, amen. What a pleasure to have you on the channel, Joe. Thank you for just giving us some of your redneck wisdom. It's a pleasure to have you. Well, shoot. Well, don't let me take up your whole day, but it's a pleasure to be here, Matt. God bless you. Thank you for watching this episode of Through Confusion. If you haven't already, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next content. And blessings to you and your families.